Do you have any idea how many informants there must be? If every organization has them, saying there's a lot would be an understatement, especially with the Sinaloa. Telcar, who has the most informants. When people hear that the United States is fighting Ocran, the first thing that comes to mind is the DEA. However, many other agencies are also involved in this fight against Ocran, such as the FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, Customs and Border Protection, Homeland Security Investigations, ICE and UFAC, the Marshals, just to name a few. Each of them have thousands of informants. The DEA and FBI alone have over 20,000 informants each. Imagine, it's a world full of people passing all sorts of information every day, and that's not even considering the agencies from other countries like Mexico, Colombia, and so on. And all it takes is a simple tool, a cell phone. Believe me, it's incredible how many people apply to be informants, and how the government has the luxury to ignore them, make them wait, or decide who gets in and who doesn't. It's crazy when you start looking at it from that perspective and you realize the scope of it. It's tough. I believe the most famous informants against the Ocran organizations in Mexico are the Flores twins. They're the ones who take the top prize in this game. But among the Italians, we've also got the notorious Salvatore Gravano, better known as Sammy the Bull. And in Colombia, there's Andres Lopez, known as Florecita. And there are some active characters who are also informants, for example, the Flaquito from Tijuana, who is well known to be collaborating with American agencies. And you see, informants, being citizens, are looked after by the government. You all saw what happened to Nini as soon as he resigned an informant in Durango. They immediately persuaded Ovidio to tell his brothers to target Nini, and in less than a month, they caught the girl without even... Now, I'm going to throw out a theory and tell you guys about an example of how informants can be exposed, and how the government communicates to the carrier who the snitches are. Let me give you an example of a scenario that I've already shared with you a while back. Look, the government starts leaking information about someone ratting out the organizations. The organizations start noticing that there are disruptions like house raids or government crackdowns. And as everyone knows, the government isn't psychic. So they simply focus on the people around the incidents to see who's acting strange. Who's connected to more than one incident where there's been trouble? So they'd set traps. For instance, let me tell you about one time when, through these traps and actions, they caught an informant. It was Juancho, Pocha's cousin. The Mexican government was leaking information that there was a member of the organization, someone high up, who was collaborating with the American agencies. That was the first piece of information they passed on. Then, they mentioned this person was sharing very precise information and that the gringos were thrilled. They told the Mexican government to focus all their efforts on identifying the informant. Later, they said it was someone with a lot of money and several properties, who was arranging things with the United States to keep their money and move there to live. The condition was to turn in Pocha and his associates. Then they said that he had set up 2 tunnels in Tijuana and that he also established the warehouse where they seized over 100 tons of marijuana in October of 2010. And the government started to make frequent raids on Pocha's locations, following the leads they provided. Everything pointed towards Juancho being the informant. Pocha didn't want to believe it, but as the raids on him became more frequent, he started paying attention to Juancho and started setting traps for him. He would tell Juancho he was in a certain place, and just by chance, the government would show up whenever Juancho went to visit Pocha. Either hours later or the next day, the government would raid that place. 3 times he was told he would be in a certain place where he wasn't. And what happens? Government forces showed up all 3 times. With that, Pocha had no doubt that Juancho was the snitch. So when the informants in the government were rooted out, they signaled that the snitch had gone missing. The informant had disappeared, and the Americans launched 4 or 5 drones to find him. They were desperate because they couldn't locate him, and the Mexican government would support them by going out on patrol. So, that day, an army of government agents hit the streets, and that's how they fully identified the informant. Now, friends, remember I told you in a previous episode that I'd talk to you about the Witness Protection Program in the U.S., known as WITSEC. People talk without knowing the facts. Just look at how they said Ovidio couldn't be in that program because he hadn't been sentenced yet, and someone was claiming that, right? So now, let me break it down for you. WITSEC is one of the most crucial programs designed to protect individuals who cooperate with the government by providing critical testimony, usually in cases involving organized crime. The Witness Protection Program was established in 1970 under the Organized Crime Control Act, designed to combat criminal organizations. It is managed by the United States Marshal Service, which offers protection to witnesses and their families. Due to the nature of their cooperation with the authorities, they're at a high risk of retaliation. All right, as I already told you, you don't have to be convicted to enter this program. Another thing, the judge has nothing to do with this program. The people who apply to enter the witness program are prosecutors. They are the ones responsible for preparing the application with the marshals. Of course, the case agents also sign off to confirm that the witness is suitable, if they're eligible to enter the program. But at the end of the day, it's not them who decide. They simply make the request. What really matters is the decision of whether a person can enter the program or not is made by a specialized committee of the marshals. They review the case, analyze it, and either accept or reject it. After being accepted into the program, neither the witness's attorney, the prosecutor, nor the agents know where the individual is sent to. This is in cases where the person is already free. I'm going to share an anecdote about someone I know who entered this program. He surrendered to the United States Attorney's Office and spent a short time in a detention center. From there, they sent him to a building that was like a hotel, with everything very old, and the guards there had their own rooms. They had a television, and to make a call, they had to ask the guards for permission, but they could move around freely on that floor of the building. They sent him there because he was already in the Witness Protection Program. He went, and he admitted almost immediately after being arrested. Later, he was transferred to a prison that was part of the program, where he mixed with personalities like Tigrillo de los Aretes and Chino Antrax. He was with Sammy the Bull, Chupeta, and many more notorious characters awaiting sentencing, and he was already in the program. So, that's why I tell you, and I can assure you that everything those ignorant people say about not being able to enter the program before being sentenced is completely false. And well, there are 2 types of programs, one that operates within the prison and another that functions outside of the prison. But first, let's see how the program works and how the admission process goes. First, the Department of Justice evaluates if the witness qualifies for the program. The criteria include the rule, the relevance of the testimony, and the level of threat the witness faces. Second, relocation and identity change. If accepted into the program, the key witness is relocated to a new location, and they, along with any close family members if necessary, are given new identities along with their documentation, such as their social security number and driver's license. Thirdly, the program offers financial and housing assistance. It provides initial financial support to help witnesses establish a new life. They are also assisted in finding employment, although long-term support is not provided. Fourthly, while physical protection may decrease over time, the witnesses and their families continue to be monitored to ensure their safety. Fifth, witnesses and their families receive training to adapt to their new life. This includes creating life stories that are consistent with their new identities to prevent any suspicion. Outside the prison, but don't think it's all sunshine and roses. This program is like being caged while free because these witnesses face serious difficulties adapting to a new life. Many witnesses and their families struggle to adapt to a new and anonymous life. Losing contact with friends, families, starting from scratch and living with a false identity can cause psychological and emotional issues because they are completely restricted and monitored, and they can't afford to make even a single mistake. Now let's see what the witness protection program looks like inside the prison. Not all protected witnesses are free individuals. Some of them are already serving sentences for crimes they've committed, but they cooperate with the authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence or protection. For these witnesses, there are special prisons or sections within federal prisons where they are housed away from other inmates who might harm them. There are only about 7 prisons of this kind in the country. These prisons, or areas within prisons, are known as witness security units. And these special units are designed to keep the witnesses apart from the general prison population, especially from other inmates who might have connections with the criminal organizations under investigation. Protected witnesses in prison are subject to intensified surveillance to ensure they aren't attacked. Furthermore, the guards and prison staff with access to these witnesses typically undergo additional security checks to prevent any leaks of information. The program has played a crucial role in dismantling major organizations, particularly the mafia during the 80s and 90s, as well as various cartels in more recent years. Protected witness testimonies have enabled convictions in cases where the evidence was insufficient since its inception. Over 19,000 individuals, including witnesses and their families, have been protected by the Witness Protection Program, according to the program's statistics. Now, a lot of people like to talk and make comments because they imagine something or see something, but the truth is they don't really know what the Ocran environment is actually like. For instance, many of you have seen how certain characters get arrested or resign when found in really nasty places, to put it mildly. And they weren't supposed to have a lot of money and power and be living in a palace. So why were they in those kinds of places, characters of that caliber? And look how they ended up, begging the army for forgiveness. This is to show all those who don't know.
Pero comentan quiénes son los que están escondidos, porque veo en muchos canales y podcasts que comentan o hablan de que los testigos protegidos o los informantes están escondidos. A ver, vamos a analizar esto a detalle, porque yo veo que los operativos
The players don't even poke their heads out. They have to run out naked or jump into an irrigation ditch or cover themselves with mud to hide. And I see the protected witnesses, as they are called. They go wherever they want because I've seen pictures of these figures at airports and also at amusement parks. I see some of them giving interviews and posing for photos, others delivering lectures, and some even running million-dollar companies. As for the women, I see some with their social media wide open, writing books, and others who've even become models. And that's just to name a few. So I don't think they're hiding or scared. What I see is that they are actually enjoying life, out and about, having a good time. Look, you've got to realize something. What does an Ocran player crave the most? Usually money and power, right? Absolutely. But there's something they covet 3 times as much, maybe even more, once they've got that. It's the freedom to move wherever they want, to be carefree, to be alone. That level of peace that comes from being able to hop on a plane, catch a train, or drive your car whenever you want, going wherever you want without needing bodyguards, lookouts, or worrying about the route, about checkpoints, uncontrolled territories held by enemies, or getting arrested at the airport. Look, you've got the money and power, and if you feel like it, you can buy yourself a jet. But you can't use it to go wherever you want because it's too dangerous. Or you buy a helicopter, a yacht, an island, but any of those things, they are extremely dangerous. What do all the thugs do? They buy properties, very good, all right, and then they buy lands, as much as they can, but always near their own turf, where they come from or where they have control. Why? To feel like they've achieved their goal. It's all about who owns the most land there, or who the big shots are. Obviously that's why, because that's where they're from. They don't go out and buy lands elsewhere in territories of other organizations. They do purchase properties in big cities like Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Cancun, Los Cabos, and so on. But that's it, really. What the trafficker yearns for the most is peace, the freedom to move around, the ability to walk without worry. That's why they pay so much money to the government. But normally, the government won't let you do whatever you want. For instance, you may have bribed some naval military personnel, but they won't let you walk around armed in front of them as if nothing's amiss. Nor can you just greet them and have them act as if it's all fine. Not at all. They usually bribe them so they'll tip them off about operations they are going to carry out. And sure, so that the authorities help the crooks to carry out their operations to take down their enemies or stuff like that. Both groups benefit from this arrangement. What everyone really wants is to be on good terms with the government and for it to be mutually advantageous. They want to maintain a calm plaza. They want everything quiet. No thefts, no resignations, no wars. Why? So that Ocran can move around comfortably in their territory without government presence or checkpoints everywhere. Because Ocran knows it's being hunted by the government, but if it doesn't make a mess and does things right, then the government can play dumb and not arrest the person. Because then, the government. He realizes the territory is quiet, which allows a person to walk around a bit more confidently. So, the ignorant folks who've never been in that spot, in that position of power, what do they say? Darn snitches, darn rats, and the protected witnesses, or anyone who cooperates. They live a miserable life, bitter because they can't set foot on their land or their ranch or in their city, you name it. And let me tell you, only the ignorant folks who've never held true power would say such things. And they've never held a high-ranking position in the Ocran because, as I mentioned, what they most crave, mind you, I'm talking about the bosses, not just any lower-level characters, what they want most of all, they want to be able to move wherever they want, alone. They crave the freedom to take vacations. And if there's a place where nobody knows them, they can walk around freely and enjoy themselves without worries. Relying on a secretary, on a lookout, on an escort. Considering the government around the area, they're just dying to go to a restaurant? Do you think the real bosses can go wherever they want, whenever they feel like it? Obviously not. Do you think Arturo Beltran, with all the money he had, you see how he always had to hide? Just like El Pocha, despite his power, he always had to be on alert, ready to run. Sure, there are times they enjoy themselves, but it comes with daily stress. Because they live life minute by minute, since at any time they might make a mistake, or the government runs out of patience, or as usual, someone betrays them, and it all comes to an end. That's how it is. They get extradited, or they flee to the United States. Look at the examples I've given you. Think about it. Do you believe they're in hiding? Quite the opposite. They travel all over the world. They, like many others, cooperated, and just look at them now. And they watch all their enemies fall, enjoying life with ease, and all those I've mentioned, along with many more, can stroll wherever they please. They can go to any country they want, or if they don't want to leave the United States, they can travel all over the country, go to Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Alaska, and many other places. Maybe they can't go back to Sinaloa or their homeland, but do you think they care? After spending a whole lifetime there, enjoying it, and doing whatever they wanted, even though it was always with that little nagging stress and worry, and now they have what they've always dreamed of. Always being able to use a phone, make a video call, walk alone, stroll around a shopping plaza whenever they feel like it, grab their passport, take a flight to Europe. They have it all and don't need to rely on anyone. Walking among people on the street, they can drive any car they fancy. Now they can practically live in a mansion without fear that the government will come and capture them or seize anything. As I've already mentioned, they can do whatever they want and go wherever they want. Those running from the government are hiding every day, no matter how many millions they have. It's inevitable that everything comes to an end someday. So, just to make it clear to all those ignorant people who just talk to talk, and out of envy, because it's nothing more than that. But those who have enjoyed life and are now free, they know they're living a dream. Because, as it always happens, time passes and nobody lives forever, and everything comes to an end. Maybe in many years, if they wish, they'll visit their ranches to take a stroll. Of course they'll do it, but they don't need to be broadcasting it. Only a few really got to live the high life, going big like Chino Antrax, who would take off on vacations. But because he did that, they arrested him, while others like Playa, he truly roamed wherever he wanted. But I'll tell you about that in another chapter, because that character really leads a very interesting life. All right, friends. I hope it's clear to you now just how important informants are. I hope you learned something new and liked this episode. As always, if you have any questions, please write them down in the comments. I always read them. See you in the next episode. And you already know that the unique and real narrative of the world of Ocran can only be found right here. A big hug to all of you. See you in the next episode. I want to remind you that the caps are still available for those who want to get one, and I'm going to leave the link to the store right here. Also, on Instagram, the store link is there, and the colors you see here are available. Thank you very much, once again, for your support, and see you next time.